A simple gesture can remind you of sports' most iconic players. The shrug by Michael Jordan. The fist pump by Tiger Woods. Cristiano Ronaldo's "see you," but nothing is more iconic than the Heisman pose. This is the story of John Heisman. Let's talk about it. John Heisman was a pioneer when it comes to football, shifting the game from a brutal, chaotic mess into what we all know and love today, adding plays and changing rules to completely revolutionize the way the game was played, some of which are actually crazy to think that they were never a part of the original game. So I did a video recently on Georgia Tech kicking the absolute dog piss out of Cumberland College 222-0. You should go check that video out. It's actually a pretty crazy story. Well, not right now, but like when this video's over, you should go check that one out. Anyway, the head coach of that Georgia Tech football team was John Heisman. And when I started doing research on that game, I realized I don't really know that much about Heisman outside of they named a trophy after him. Turns out, he's pretty important to the game of football. Shocker, I know. The most prestigious award in college football is named after a guy, and he's actually pretty important to the game. Heck, even outside of the game of football, he did a ton of other really cool stuff. Like, did you know he was a thespian? No, that's not what I said. Thespian. T-H. Thespian. A theatrical actor is what I'm trying to say. And he was a rather accomplished one at that. He was a drama student all through high school, and even into his adult life, when he wasn't in season as a football coach, he would put on plays. For instance, at the end of the 1897 season, the Auburn football team was actually $700 in debt. In an attempt to make up that money, Heisman actually formed the university's first theatrical group and put on a comedic play by David Garrick. He was not only the star and main character of that play, but he was also the producer and the director. And with that acting background, it actually gave him the ability to give like the most intense pre-game and halftime speeches. And if you ever played a sport with a coach that was really good at those, you know how jacked up you could get with a great pre-game speech. Shout out Coach Smith. That dude got us ready to run through a brick wall. He would get that crazy in his eyes and he would just talk straight into your soul. But let's get back on topic before I go full Uncle Rico over here.
Back in '82, I used to be able to throw a pigskin a quarter mile.
Are you serious?
I'm dead serious.
Heisman was introduced to football in 1884 when he was in high school and immediately became obsessed. Interestingly enough, though, his dad actually hated football and refused to watch him play games, calling it a brutal, beastly waste of time. Though thankfully for us, he didn't listen to his father. It's kind of like a crazy sliding doors moment there, you know? Like if he'd actually listened to his dad and never played the game, like what would it look like today? Because back then it was like a bastardized version of like soccer and rugby combined, but like more violent. So shout out being a rebellious teen. After high school, he would go on to play football for 2 years at Brown University before transferring to Penn and playing another 3 years there while he obtained his law degree, which he never actually used, and immediately started coaching football right after graduation. Imagine, you're John Heisman, your son is obsessed with the game that you find just brutal and abhorrent, so much so that you've never watched him play a single game. He goes off to college to become a lawyer, actually does, but then decides, I don't want to practice law, I want to continue playing and coaching this game that you hate so much. Dude just loved football. His first stop as head coach was at Auburn College in 1892, where he quickly made an impact on not just the college there, but football as a whole. Interestingly enough, on that 1982 team was Clarence Hemingway, Ernest Hemingway's dad.
How much you know about Hemingway?
Not a lot, but I'm gonna learn. I'm becoming Ernest Hemingway, you idiots.
And John Henry Wise, the first Hawaiian to ever play collegiate football. And in his first year of coaching, they actually went undefeated, pending who you believe. Because during the Michigan game, they were up 24-22. One ref declared the game over, so all the Oberlin players left the field. The other ref said it's not over, so a Michigan player ran in the game-winning touchdown with no defense on the field. So Oberlin claims they won it, and Michigan claims they won it. This is actually like one of my favorite parts about college football. You can just make shit up and claim national titles. I mean, you could still do it to this day and just hope nobody says anything. Like Auburn, a few months ago, they just decided, hey, we have 4 more national titles. Yeah, that's right. We have 4 more national titles than we did a couple months ago. We're going to go ahead and claim 1910, 1914, 1958, and 2004. I get how a university could try to play the semantics game and like claim something from the late 1800s or early 1900s because the bookkeeping and stuff like that really wasn't good back in the day. But going after one in 2004 is pretty bold. Okay, back to Heisman. After that first year, he actually moved on to Bucktail University, which is now known as the University of Akron, and not only became the football coach there, but also the baseball coach. And here is where he gets credit for essentially inventing the snap. Like before this time, the center would either roll or kick the ball backwards on the ground, obviously leading to a bunch of chaos. And apparently his quarterback that year, Henry Clark, was pretty tall, making this exchange slow and awkward. So Heisman had the idea for the center to just toss it straight back to him to make it like quicker and more efficient. He's also credited with the quarterback saying the word hike to start the play. Before that, the quarterback would just like scratch his leg to let him know he was ready for the ball. And when he was at pin, he was actually the center. And he said one time an opposing player actually scratched his leg, leading him to snap the ball early. It's okay, John. Sometimes I snap the ball a little too early when my wife scratches my leg too. He then went back to Oberlin in 1894, and in 1895 took a job at the Alabama Polytechnic Institute, which is now known as Auburn. And since Auburn is way easier to say than the Alabama Polytechnic Institute, I'm just going to call it Auburn from here on out. He loved getting creative with the way he drew up plays, and while he was at Auburn, he's credited with inventing the hidden ball trick, which is exactly what it sounds like. You hide the ball underneath one of your players' jerseys to disguise who has it. And I mean, when it comes to trick plays, it's actually genius. You just gather up in a circle, one player puts the ball underneath his jersey, and then you just scatter into a bunch of directions, and the defense has to figure out who has the ball. But I also get why it's now outlawed. So while I was doing research on this, I actually found this old photo from an 1895 football game between Auburn and Georgia, which if you've been here from the beginning, you know that's known as the Deep South's oldest rivalry. And interestingly enough, the coach of that Georgia team was Pop Warner. A crazy matchup in retrospect. But let's get back to the photo. It really shows how different the game is now. Everyone's all crowded up around the line of scrimmage, and the quarterback is seemingly on a knee, ready to take the snap. And I'm assuming that this dude is the ref, and he's just wearing a suit. I actually think about this way more often than I should, but it's insane that people just used to wear suits all the time. Like, it's September in the South, and you're expected to wear a full-ass suit to go watch a football game outside. I'm in an air-conditioned office wearing a t-shirt and shorts, and I still have pit stains. Like, I can't even comprehend the amount of swamp ass in this photo. Everyone in the world just smelled like shit all the time for the entirety of human history up until recently. I can't be the only one that thinks about this so much. Sorry, let's get back to it. Heisman would then move on to Clemson, and again, he was not only the football coach, but the baseball coach there. And in his 4 years at Clemson, he would win the Southern Intercollegiate Athletic Association Championship 3 different times, which is now basically the modern-day SEC. This is also where he just starts beating the brakes off of his opponents. That first year, he went 6-0, outscoring his opponents 222-10. But it actually should be way more than that, because in their second game against Wofford, after they went up 21-0, they agreed that every point after that wouldn't count against the score. And then in 1901, he would post the highest score in Clemson football history, 122-0. He actually still holds the highest winning percentage for a head coach at Clemson for both baseball and football, with an above 800 win percentage in both sports. He would then move on to Georgia Tech, where again he was the head football coach and the baseball coach. And if that wasn't enough on his plate, he decided to also be the head basketball coach. This is also the place where he would make the most influential changes to the game of football. During his time at Georgia Tech, he would have 3 undefeated seasons and actually went on a 32-game win streak, during which his team would set the record for highest scoring football game of all time, 222-0 versus Cumberland. And like I mentioned earlier, I've got a really good video on that. So if you want to get the full story of that ass-kicking of epic proportions, check it out after this one. Like I mentioned before, the early games of football were brutally violent. So much so that in the 1905 season, there were reportedly 19 deaths and over 150 others seriously injured. So President Theodore Roosevelt, who actually loved the game and didn't want to see it disappear, called for a meeting because there needed to be immediate rule changes to make this game safer. One of those rule changes was the legalization of the forward pass, and Heisman was instrumental in that rule change. It's wild to think that for the first 43 years of the sport of football, throwing the pass forward was just straight up illegal. In that same season, Heisman would introduce the offensive shift against his old team Auburn. He called it the jump shift, but it would later be known as the Heisman shift. And if you aren't familiar with the game of football, hey, thanks for being here. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. But it's where the offense lines up, and before the ball is snapped, they shift into a new alignment, which had to just be like a total mindfuck for defenses that year. Not only do you have to figure out how to defend the forward pass, now we've got people just moving around before the ball is snapped. Then a few years later, he would convince the rules committee to go from 2 halves to 4 quarters, ensuring that the players got more rest time in an attempt to again make the game safer. It's now time for today's installment of useless but interesting trivia. As if I haven't already given you a shit ton of trivia with all the different changes in the game Heisman's made. But this one's more in the useless trivia category, which is sometimes my favorite category. Heisman actually coined the name Yellow Jackets for Georgia Tech. Before, the school had a handful of nicknames, but they never actually officially recognized any of them. A few of those nicknames that didn't stick were the Engineers, the Blacksmiths, the Techs, and the Golden Tornadoes. But like I said, the school actually never officially recognized any of those. And it wasn't actually even because of the Hornet. The fans would wear yellow jackets in support of the team to the game, so Heisman declared, "We should be the Yellow Jackets." And while we're on the subject, here's a handful of other things that Heisman is either credited with inventing or at least popularizing. The play-action fake. And again, if you're not familiar with football, it's where the quarterback takes a snap, pretends to hand it to the running back to hopefully draw the defense in, thinking it's a run, and then steps back and throws it. Other trick plays like the flea flicker or the double lateral pass, pulling guards and running plays, and then keeping track of down and distance on the scoreboard. All of these things are like vital aspects in today's game and further help legitimize it as its own sport, rather than just like a barbaric, brutal version of rugby. He would end his coaching career with quick stops at Penn, Washington and Jefferson, and finally Rice, retiring from coaching in 1927 with an overall record of 186, 70, and 18. After retiring from coaching, he would become the athletic director at the Downtown Athletic Club in Manhattan, New York. And in 1936, he would die from pneumonia. That year, the Downtown Athletic Club decided to change the name of its trophy, which it gave to the most outstanding collegiate football player, to the Heisman. So when you're watching a game this weekend and you see a player go in motion, then the quarterback yells hike, and the center snaps it back to him. Then he fakes it to the running back, steps back, 50-yard bomb. Say thanks, John, and then hit the pose. Thanks for watching this episode of High Fiving Strangers. Like, subscribe, and comment down below what player, event, or team you want to see me cover next. The best way to support the channel is buying some merch. And as always, get out there and high five some strangers. Oh, shit. It is past my bedtime. Hey, be better at talking so you can go home and go to sleep.